This is the Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It is Friday, June 12th, 2015. We're coming to you live from the studios of the Hagmann Hagmann Report here in beautiful Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report, America's premier father-son investigative reporting team. Folks, our job is to bring you the news that propels the headlines. That's what we like to say. The news that is convoluted and hidden amid a funhouse of smoke and mirrors in the carnival known as the corporate media. And we do the headline and news triage so you don't have to, and there's so much of it. My goodness, today has just been such a news event-filled day. I want to thank every single listener to the program. Thank you so much for tuning into us tonight and every night. Thank you for checking in from all over the world. For new listeners, just want to remind you that we broadcast live Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Our home base on the internet is hagmannandhagmann.com. That's hagmannandhagmann.com. From there, you can access us live. Just go to the right-hand side of the page. And also in the controls on the top there, as well as our past shows, social networking sites, and most importantly, our original investigative reports. Tonight, we have got a lot to talk about. Coach Dave Daubenmire is going to be joining us here at the bottom of this hour, just for a little bit. We're going to be talking about our time that we are going to spend together in Washington, D.C. this weekend. That's right. Joe and I are taking to the road. Going to be in Washington, D.C. for a solemn event. Not for a rally or a seminar or a speaking engagement, but just to be present and pray at the Supreme Court building. Joe, how you doing?
Doing good. Looking forward to traveling out of town, and it's funny to hear me say that because usually when we would travel, it was never anything pleasant. It was always work. But this is something that I'm looking forward to doing.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you.
Washington, but you got to go in the belly of the beast, I guess, right?
The belly of the beast. You know, I'm tired. I'm just tired.
And old.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I'm kidding.
But no, is it okay to admit that I'm tired?
Absolutely. You're not the only one.
Yeah. The last thing that I really want to do is travel. But you know what? That means that's the first thing I should do.
Yeah.
You know?
And we haven't talked about this, but I am willing to drive the whole way, both ways.
Oh, thank you.
However many,
Can I sit in the back?
You can sit in the very back, in the trunk if you want.
I'll pull my weight.
We traveled so much for so many years doing investigative work. Some days we would get up and travel from here to D.C. just to begin work. That's right. So it's not that big of a deal.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Leaving Saturday, we'll be back Sunday night.
At least that's the plan, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And we'd urge everyone to join us in prayer. We're going to be at the Supreme Court building with Coach Dave Daubenmire from noon until 3 on Sunday, June 14th. That's noon until 3.
It's supposed to be muggy, 90 degrees.
Right. And if you can make it, that's great. I mean, it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be a party. It's not going to be a social event. It's going to be a very solemn event. We're going there. We're going to pray. We're very laser-like prayers. Now, I'll say this: Joe and I have got some investigations for show content to pursue tomorrow in D.C. That's not giving away too much, but we have some things that we want to take care of in D.C. and just outside of D.C. When I say just outside of, I'm talking about just outside of it tomorrow that will be taken care of. And then depending on events, perhaps a little bit on Sunday as well. And we're going to be taking our new camera equipment there to DC. Folks, next week we hope to have our brand new YouTube channel up and running in full out, full bore. And a lot of the product that we will obtain this weekend, the investigative product, will be up on our YouTube channel, and we'll be writing about it. So there's a lot going on, just a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
And it's no, I'm not gonna go there. I'll say this. Joe and I both listened to Rick Wiles earlier today, his program from today. And I'm
Did we get the whole program? I wasn't keeping track of time, so I know we listened to most of it, or we listened to the interviews he did. We listened to his monologue.
Right. I think his monologue is perhaps from today is perhaps the most important. Christians are being censored by Christian radio stations.
Yeah, for disagreement and
for doctrinal disagreement. Well, yeah. Would you call it doctrinal disagreements, or?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
When you come out, you see.
I mean, that's in a time that we live in where Christianity is under censorship and attack here verbally in America, when it's in the Middle East being slaughtered any place it's found.
Yeah.
In China, it's being oppressed, and there is no room for that kind of behavior, whether you agree or not. Right. I mean, if you agree on Jesus being your Lord and Savior, then all else can be put to the side, I would say.
Well, exactly. And, of course, the reason for censorship, based on what Rick Wiles said, was really two issues. Primarily, his stance on the pre-trib rapture. He believes, no, that's not biblical, number one. That's what Rick Wiles believes.
And he's entitled to that belief, just like people who believe in the pre-tribulation rapture are entitled to their belief.
Right.
We'll find out who's right or wrong. Not that makes a difference when it's all said and done, but I mean, really, that's a point of contention, so much so that it's
ridiculous.
Causing censorship and his show to be not aired on certain outlets.
I mean, that's what Christians are going to fight about.
It's not Christian-like to do something like that. I mean, I could see if they came and talked to him and say, hey, we got issues or we have concerns, but just to find out through secondhand that your show's not airing anymore because they don't agree with your theology.
Exactly. That's to me, that's ridiculous. We have you said it, Joe. We've got Christians being martyred every single day. We've got a war against Christians here in this country. And, the war against the Christians in this country, the people waging the war, they're not asking you, hey, are you a pre-trib or mid-trib? What's your stance on the tribulation? And then we're going to wage war against you. No. It's a war against Christians and Christianity, period. They don't care about your stance on the tribulation. No, they don't. It's really, really simple. The other thing that was an issue with him was his criticism. And just to be clear, I want to make this perfectly clear. We stand behind Rick Wiles 100%. At least I do. His opinions and his what he said today, his monologue, his criticism of the homosexual. I almost said gay. The homosexual celebration in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and Benjamin Netanyahu coming out in favor of that. Are you kidding me? I mean, really? Now,
it's the age of political correctness.
Yeah.
And this goes along with what we want to talk about tonight, identifying the power behind the veil.
That's right.
In this push towards global government. This is a tactic they use,
divide and conquer.
Tolerance, political correctness, acceptance. Just because, I mean, you can, when we talk about the biblical, the sin, you hate the sin, love the sinner. But you don't celebrate the sin. Is there a thief pride parade? Is there a murderer pride parade? Is there a liar pride parade? Is there a cheater pride? I mean,
the year's not over yet.
So that's the whole thing there. I mean, if a group of convicted people who were claimed to be murderers got together and wanted to start a organization, would the church have to change their definition of what is? I mean, we're all technically murderers, and from what Jesus explained, you know, if you hate your brother, you are a murderer. But I mean, they're celebrating the sin, and that is crossing the line beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Well, you know, the issue of homosexuality, it's interesting to me how this is really part and parcel to a larger globalist agenda. I mean, it's necessary. You got to go back into the 50s and understand the works of Kinsey. I'm trying to grab my book
for the
here.
What?
What do you mean?
What was the first part of that? To go back to Kinsey?
To understand the larger, how the homosexual agenda fits into the globalist agenda. Okay. For example, back in the 50s, Kinsey, doctor, and I use that very loosely, Kinsey was Dr. Alfred Kinsey. He did all sorts of experiments in human sexuality, and he was celebrated by people like Hugh Hefner and such. Kinsey was a pervert. I mean, he was a pervert, and he was a sodomite, and that's just what the good parts I can think of. Well, that's Kinsey's so-called findings were used in large part to legitimize homosexuality, sodomy, pedophilia, and so on. All right, you've got to understand where this all fits in and who funded Kinsey. And when you look back at the evolution of the homosexual movement, it's really a war against our morals, it's and our values, and it's a war organized and orchestrated at the highest levels against Christianity and against the nuclear or the traditional family. And I shouldn't even say traditional family. It's the family, period. Anything else other than a husband and a wife, a man and woman married, is an abomination. You don't like it? Take it up with God. Take it up with the Bible. If you think that, end of story. It's not two guys. It's not two women. It's not, 3 and 2 or 3 and 1. I mean, it's not polygamy. And the problem with this country, the problem with Christians, the problem with leaders in this country, they don't have the guts to go out and say, look, what you're doing is it's anti-Christian, it's anti-biblical, and it's sinful. No. Oh, we have to get along. We can't judge. Baloney, we can't judge. As Pastor David Langford says, we judge all the time. And if you don't judge, you're a fool.
It's called discernment.
Right. But to understand the power behind the veil, look at the communist goals in this. Look at the communist goals that were read into the congressional record, and you will see that most of them have been achieved, and much of it was the destruction of the nuclear, or I shouldn't say much. One of them was the destruction of the nuclear or the traditional family. Of course, that's been achieved, and people laugh, and I want to get this in here before I forget, and I certainly can forget. People laugh at the conspiratorial aspect of what's going on in the country today and what has been going on The conspiracy has been going on for really hundreds of years, or since this country was founded. Folks, if you want a homework assignment, or if you just want to consider this during the show, think about this. Woodrow Wilson as president. Of course, Woodrow Wilson, he was, he ushered in the Federal Reserve and such. But remember when he was involved with Leon Trotsky? Trotsky, the anti-Christian revolutionary, whose openly avowed intention was to go to Russia to overthrow the government of Russia. Remember that when Trotsky, well, you don't remember, I don't remember, we weren't born back in the early 1900s, of course, or functioning adults anyway. But by what power and by what authority, or by whose authority did Wilson demand and get the release of Leon Trotsky from police custody in Canada? Obviously, Woodrow Wilson, his presidential powers did not extend into Canada. But somehow, Wilson was able to get Trotsky a passport, an American passport no less, and get him over to Russia. How could a non-American citizen get a United States passport? That's virtually impossible to arrange, even back then, even for large sums of money. Yet here, this firebrand revolutionary, who spent a lot of time rallying against the United States government, Trotsky that is, set sail for Russia with abundant money, traveling under a U.S. passport, for which he was not entitled. When he was arrested in Canada, bam, he's released. So, if you want to deny, if people want to deny or laugh at or scoff at the existence of conspiracies, criminal conspiracies at the highest levels of government, hey, there's Exhibit A or Exhibit 1, perhaps. How many people know that part of history, that Wilson actually arranged for Leon Trotsky to get out of jail in Canada and gave him a U.S. passport, and all of a sudden he's heading over to Russia to overthrow the government of Russia? Gee, conspiracy. Just see that on the History Channel. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that and much more. The veil, the power behind the veil. We're going to be getting into the Committee of 300, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, which is meeting here imminently, as part of the power structure that is behind such things as NAFTA, GATT, WTO, and of course now the TPP. And then we're going to contextualize, or I'll term contextualize, the Supreme Court decision on the homosexual unions, which is an abomination, which is why we are going to Washington, D.C. to stand in solemn prayer from 12 to 3 in front of the Supreme Court building, because we have to recognize the power of this prayer and recognize the ability to penetrate the different, just realize the power of prayer. And I was going to get into the various dimensions, and I think that Dr. Lake has talked about, Josh Peck talked about, Nathan Leal talks about, and Steve, and all of our guests, Paul McGuire, the multidimensional aspect and the power of prayer. Prayer is extremely powerful, and it's in our arsenal. And if we don't use it in addition to other things, then we're foolish if we don't use it. A couple of things I want to mention, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joe. And we got a book, our book today. I want to thank Rebecca Roth so much for sending Methodical Illusion.
Yeah, we got a few books today.
I'm looking forward here.
Are they over there?
I just had it in my hand. I don't know. I wrote an endorsement for Methodical Illusion. I just want to say Thank you, Rebecca Roth. It's a great book, Methodical Illusion. That noise you just heard was Joe putting. Oh, there it is, right there. Thanks. Methodical Illusion is written by Rebecca Roth, and it's on Amazon or Methodical Illusion website. But in endorsement, of course, this book is endorsed by Barbara Honegger, the former White House policy analyst and Department of Defense senior military affairs journalist from 2000 to 2011. John B. Wells, host of Caravan to Midnight, endorsed it. And I endorsed it as well. My endorsement just reads as follows. Masterfully written, using an elusive yet perfect blend of intrigue and fact, Rebecca Roth offers a gripping account of indispensable factual details of the most horrifically historic event of our lifetimes. The events as seen and described through the eyes of a seasoned airline professional will certainly cause turbulence to your otherwise clear air normalcy bias. It is very important history and elegantly written, and I mean that sincerely, and this is about Methodical Illusion by Rebecca Roth, so thank you for that. Also, I want to mention something else, and I'm going to be putting this on our website, HagmannandHagmann.com, folks. Brand new and changed. I had the honor once again to write the foreword for Prepare for Persecution by Maria Knies. Prepare for Persecution. If you go to Amazon.com and type that in, Prepare for Persecution, I'll have a link up on the website here shortly. How to Stand Firm is the subtitle. I wrote the foreword to that as well. And I just state that it's an extremely important informational, instructional, and inspirational resource for all Christians living today. I do want to point this out. Unlike many books that tend to lose their relevance over time, Prepare for Persecution. Its importance will increase exponentially in the coming days. And the way I look at it, conversationally, between me and, of course, you folks, it serves as a historical bookmark, to me anyway, that illustrates the incremental progression of oppression against Christians. It provides sound biblical advice and encouragement as the persecution of Christians becomes more aggressive. And we're seeing this happen. We're seeing this increase in aggressiveness against Christians. And if you're not seeing it, you're not paying attention. And let me just give you a little bit more here. We're all looking. Most of us who are paying attention to current events, reading the headlines and listening to uncensored news, we're waiting for that big life-altering event that's going to take place. Now, I do believe that such an event will undoubtedly happen. But while we're hanging around looking for that, we do tend to lose sight of the smaller, less dramatic, yet equally destructive events that escape our attention in the interim, don't we? I mean, we're looking around for this huge event to take place. Meanwhile, we're not seeing what's going on around us that's smaller, that flies under our radar. And to me, that's exactly how we arrived at this moment in time, by not paying attention to the smaller things, or in their totality, far exceed anything of a greater magnitude. And I do write that while waiting for the dramatic and unmistakable flashbang that will accompany and announce such an event, we have failed to see the evil subtleties that have been incrementally implemented against Bible-believing Christians everywhere, especially here in the United States. And we tend to think that it can't happen here when considering the persecution of Christians or people being marginalized and vilified for adhering to the fundamental teachings in the Holy Bible. And you notice how the megachurch pastors, they're not molested, marginalized, really, because they're not teaching. Most of them are not teaching the fundamentalist beliefs of obedience, repentance, and sin will, not to sin. Okay, they're teaching tolerance of evil, and such. Anyway, as Maria's book does outline, it not only can happen here, meaning persecution, it is happening here, and many Christians, however, they're willfully choosing not to acknowledge our current path of immorality and lawlessness, and that's created some pretty fertile ground for evil to take root, grow, and multiply. It really has. We're going to be talking about the people behind the veil, who's responsible, and I think it's going to be a pretty informative broadcast tonight. Joe, today we saw a pretty confusing series of headlines. If you followed Drudge today or other news aggregation sites, I think you would be left pretty confused as to what in the world happened today with the vote in the House. What passed, what didn't pass, what failed, who did what, who's on first, right? I mean, the TPA, the TPP,
all theater, I think.
It is all theater. You betcha. You betcha.
Because the outcome
yep. Go ahead.
Is not going to be any different. It would. They might have all just passed it today. I don't know what the purposes behind the delay are, either so they can put it through underneath the title of another bill, or they're going to be voting again on it Tuesday. Maybe these congressmen and legislators didn't get enough, bribe money or enough promises for future titles or things that they can bring back home to their constituents. But that would seem to me to be the only reason that this thing didn't go through. We have a clip. We have a few clips here. Let's do this. Let's find Paul Ryan. Yesterday we read an article with some comments from Paul Ryan.
That's right.
He made a statement similar to what Nancy Pelosi said concerning the
Obamacare.
Yeah. I have to refresh the studio here to get the clips over here.
All right.
But let's see. I uploaded 2 clips. Okay. House Democrats sink part of Obama trade bill. Let's play this first.
All right.
The ayes are 126. The nays are 302. The motion is not adopted.
It was a massive defeat as President Obama's trade agenda suffered a major blow, mainly at the hands of his fellow Democrats, including their leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi.
But we have to slow down.
Mr. President?
Despite the president's last-minute trip up to Capitol Hill for one final emotional appeal behind closed doors,
I don't think you ever nail anything down around here. It's always moving.
Many House Democrats were simply turned off.
The president tried to both guilt people and then impugn their integrity. And I don't think it was a very effective tactic. There were a number of us who were insulted.
As Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison tweeted, now President Obama wants to talk? It was an indictment of the president's weak relations with Congress. Consider his trip to the congressional baseball game Thursday night, aimed at pitching his trade deal. He was there for just 20 minutes.
What do you say to people in this town who believe that's just too little too late?
The fact is the president personally had dozens of conversations with Democrats in the House and in the Senate to make the case for this proposal.
The president was pushing for 2 measures on trade, one to help workers who lose their jobs to outsourcing, the other to give him the authority to negotiate trade deals on his own. Power he wanted to cut a massive Pacific trade agreement. But liberals complain those deals, dating all the way back to NAFTA, just ship American jobs overseas, as Ross Perot put it back in the 90s.
There will be a giant sucking sound going south.
Facing similar complaints this time around, the president miscalculated, slamming his Democratic critics instead of wooing them.
Don't just throw out a bunch of stuff, making accusations about it.
Add to that Hillary Clinton's near silence on the issue, despite supporting the president's trade agenda in the past.
Any trade deal has to produce jobs and raise wages and increase prosperity and protect our security.
All of that forced the White House to turn to House Speaker John Boehner to rally Republicans to no avail.
And when we don't lead, we're allowing and frankly essentially inviting China to go right on setting the rules of the world economy.
That's a very interesting soundbite. I wonder what John Boehner is going to say after he votes it in on Tuesday.
It's going to get in.
They say in the soundbite, it's a massive defeat. It's a major blow. No, it's either part of the plan or a temporary inconvenience. Congress isn't mad because Obama only spent 20 minutes at their softball game or whatever they're doing. Paul Ryan said this. This is what we read this article yesterday. He talked about the American public will get to see it once it is passed.
You're playing that?
Yep.
Okay.
And I appreciate all of that. But again, you read through this language down in the secret room, and I welcome the day when
Which,
people,
by the way,
people
because
can
the
read it.
PDA is declassified and made public once it's agreed to.
Yes.
PDA is declassified and made public once it's agreed to.
Well, thank you, Paul Ryan.
First of all, okay.
Yeah, he misspoke there.
The TPP.
Yes. The TPA is public right now.
Right, that's correct.
We actually have the legislation. It is called H.R. 1314, Trade Act of 2015.
Right, and what they were voting on today was the TAA.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the TPA is part of the TAA. All right?
Yeah.
All right, so the TPA...
It's authority. It's all this authority.
Right. The Trade Act of 2015, which is a revision of the initial Trade Act going back to Nixon.
The TAA is the Trade Adjustment Assistance.
Well...
and that was already into law. It's Title I of the bill is Trade Promotion Authority, TPA. Title II is Extension of Trade Adjustment Assistance.
Okay, all right, but it's all under the umbrella. It's all under one. The TPA and the TAA are under one. The TPA part can't go unless the TAA is also passed.
And it definitely will.
Yeah, exactly. They were joined together by the Senate, went to the House. It was booted out by the House. It's going to come back to the House
in secret, or maybe
later.
Not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wrote earlier, they didn't work on this for 5-7 years to let some votes against their will get in the way.
Precisely. And what we're going to see take place here, this is going to be instituted come hell or high water, because it's the ultimate objective here is the global government, one world order.
And when we were playing that clip, we were talking amongst ourselves about Ross Perot. They mentioned Ross Perot and the comment about the NAFTA. When it is passed, you'll hear a giant sucking sound to the south, indicating that the manufacturing and jobs will be sucked out of America and given to Mexico. Well, he was basically laughed out of the race, or threatened out of the race, and laughed out of the race.
That's right.
For saying that. And how true were those comments? I mean, that was probably one of the most honest things any presidential candidate's ever said, ever. And they are trying to spin this like this is Hillary Clinton. You heard her say this is has to be good for American workers and jobs. But she didn't say American. She said workers and jobs. This will gut the rest of our infrastructure. It will turn authority over to foreign corporations to set policy. And China is not on the actual list as of yet. But as soon as this is passed, China will be right inside this thing.
I believe that because once this is passed, and we have to understand this, and we're going to get into this after we talk to Coach. Once this is in play, you're going to see this will be a living, breathing. It's going to be an organism, basically.
I forgot about Coach. Sorry,
yeah.
Coach.
So
he's on.
Okay, is he?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to be getting into this after the top of the hour. So let's welcome Coach Dave Dobmeyer. Go to his website, PT Salt. That's Pass the Salt, or ptsalt.com, as well as Salt and Light Brigade, saltandlightbrigade.org. Coach Dave Dobmeyer, good friend of the show, good friend of ours, a man of character, integrity, a man of prayer, a man of God. Welcome to the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, good to talk to you tonight, guys. And the enemy never rests, does he? He never rests. And it's unbelievable. And you guys have really, really nailed what's going on with that thing. Remember when we had that last election, we couldn't wait to get all those Republicans in there to stop Obama's unconstitutional government. Remember, you guys remember that, or was I having?
No, we were talking about that last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, man. Yeah. In fact, Paul Ryan, wasn't he like Mitt Romney's running mate? I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you guys? This is unbelievable.
Yeah, last night we were saying how
I could talk on that all night. I don't want to talk on that all night because you guys certainly do a more credible job of it than I do. But I just want to mention again our Salt and Light Brigade going to Washington D.C. on Sunday for the solemn assembly, time of repentance. And we're just really, really encouraged, Doug and Joe, because I mean we're hearing. I don't know how many people are going to be there. And as I said to you guys when I was on I guess it was last Friday. I don't really care how many are there. We know there are going to be people there. We hear from a guy from Puerto Rico that's flying in. We know they're coming in from California. We know that people are driving in. So there are going to be people there. But this is not a game. It's not a numbers game. And we know that there are going to be thousands and thousands who are praying right where they are. And in fact, I would try to ask people if they could go to saltandlightbrigade.org, because what we have up on that website right now is, in fact, kind of a rough draft of what we're going to do when we're there. We think it's important, as I said last week, that we all be shooting our water guns at the same direction at the same time. And so we structured this 3-hour period when we're in Washington, D.C. in 15-minute segments, 15 minutes of praise, 15 minutes of prayer, 15 minutes corporate prayer, 15 minutes of Bible reading, and 15 minutes of silent prayer, and then we're going to repeat that. And we give, again, specific prayer targets, specific scriptures, because we want everybody praying towards the same direction as we described last week. So that's all available now at saltandlightbrigade.org, and anybody who's going to be conducting one in their home or wherever it would be, they go right to that website, saltandlightbrigade.org, and we have all the PDF files there that people can download, and they can take them to church. They can do whatever they want to do with them. We have just a lot of good stuff there, and so we're encouraged about it. We're not discouraged by what everybody tells us. It's too late, and I just still don't believe that, guys. And as I said to a couple of my buddies who are have come in from St. Louis, are going to travel in with tomorrow. You know what the heck? You fight till the end. You play to the end. And what if we really can move the heart of God? At least we'll know that we gave us the best shot. But something that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just agreeing with you. You
can't say we didn't try.
That's right, and we're going to be accountable for our actions. For what we do and don't do. And Coach, look, I don't want my children and my grandchildren and the future generations thinking about me, even if I'm if I'm still on a blip on their radar. And saying, well, why in the world didn't you do something when you had the chance? That's just me.
That's right. So. Say, Doug, listen, this is really, I got criticism, as you guys, you get it too. Anytime you step out and you try to lead and you try to point something out, the critics are out there. And so anyway, I've been getting really kind of beat up on my email because they're saying, well, Coach, you're going about this all wrong because, first of all, the church made a mistake when they got involved with the government in sanctioning marriage, and what church needs to do is get out of the government marriage license business, yada, yada, yada. And, brothers, I got to be honest, I agree with all that. But, see, I think people are really, really missing the point of what's really going on here. And it's never what we think it is. As you're talking about the trade deal there, it's just never what we think it is. And I went and grabbed out my here's what's going on, guys, folks. We are seeing right now, it's a masterful technique that the enemy is using. They are pitting the 14th Amendment against the First Amendment. And let me explain that. This isn't about marriage. We'll say that again. I'll say it real slow. This is not about marriage. Marriage is the vehicle they are using. I opened my little pocket constitution to the 14th Amendment, which was known as one of the Civil War amendments. And it was a Civil War amendment because it was passed this one was passed 1868, just after the Civil War, and they were slave amendments. to guarantee that slaves had their equal rights. The 14th Amendment says this. By the way, this is the amendment that they have used to Roe versus Wade, get rid of prayer in school. They've turned everything upside down based off of the 14th Amendment. And the clause that we hear a lot about called the equal protection of the laws. 14th Amendment says this, and then bear with me, and I think I can clarify this for folks so they'll get the bigger picture. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdictions thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Remember, this is trying to free the slaves. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. That's the most dangerous 4 words ever, 5 words I guess it is, ever inserted into the Constitution, equal protection of the law. Now remember, this was used basically to free the slaves. Making sense, Joe, Doug?
Oh, yeah, so far, yep.
Okay, so equal protection, we all want that, right? We don't think anybody should be discriminated against. We all agree with that. But here's a conflict that we have, and this is why this is so critical for churches to understand. What they're doing now is they're pitting the 14th Amendment against the First Amendment. Now, everybody, I hope, knows the First Amendment, but many of them don't. So let me read that to them real quick. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble to petition the government for a redress of grievances. First Amendment specifically talks about freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom. We understand that, right? So the conflict that we see at the Supreme Court is pitting the 14th Amendment, equal protections of the law against the First Amendment. So if the Supreme Court rules, yes, by the way, there is equal protection of the law, so therefore, if a straight guy can get married, then a heterosexual can get married. That's equal protection of the law, no discrimination, creating that right certainly out of thin air, but that's their logic. Here's the problem we run into, guys. Here's where the real debate lies. They will now say, okay, no discrimination. Everybody has the equal rights, the equal protection of the law. And so we flip all of a sudden where equal protection of the law comes in conflict with religious liberty. My religious liberty is I don't want to have to marry a gay couple. I have freedom of religion. I have freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion. But when the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court rules that there is a God-given constitutional right for a homosexual not to be discriminated against in marriage, what goes out the door? Freedom of religion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Freedom of speech, right?
Yep.
They're calling it hate speech. So see, it's been a stroke of demonic genius to frame this debate in the way that they have. And I have a hard time getting people to understand that the debate is not about marriage. Marriage is merely the vehicle that they are using. See, what are you saying, Coach? I'm saying this. If they say that states, that homosexual marriage is now a constitutional right, that will then trump the religious freedom of a church who does not want to marry them. It will trump the free speech of anyone who wants to speak out against the homosexual lifestyle. Do you guys see this? Do you see the danger of what we are facing right now? This is not about the sanctity of marriage. This is about, as I tell people, the salvation, the protection of Western civilization.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, that's exactly what the lie being pushed upon us is much bigger than people understand. The agenda is much bigger than people understand. And you're right. I mean, this will turn us into potentially turn us into criminals for talking against the sin of homosexuality. And
freedom of speech, right, Doug? Freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Freedom of expression. Right of the people to peaceably assemble. All of that stuff will be trumped by the 14th Amendment. Now, why did they put the First Amendment first, do you suppose? Probably because freedom of religion certainly trumps the 14th Amendment. Certainly it does. But not with today's Supreme Court, not the way the world is. So that's why when we go to Washington, D.C., we are going to cry out for God to spare us in this marriage debate, because the impact of it is far more reaching than just marriage. Hey, Doug and Joe, we've screwed up marriage so bad, haven't we? We in the church?
Yes,
how can we possibly scream at the sanctity of marriage and protecting marriage when what we've done to marriage here in America? So we go to the Lord and we cry out for His mercy regarding marriage, but the issue is so much larger for our children and our grandchildren. And as I said, if it becomes a constitutional right, Doug, then that brings the full force of the government, the IRS. And the government will say, well, they got a right to be married, and you got to marry him. And if you don't, here comes the IRS, and they'll begin to knock down church walls like bowling pins. That's really what I think. That's why this is so critical.
Yeah, I agree, and we're seeing it happen in Europe and even in Canada. The hate speech you talk against, or you bring up any passage almost in the Old Testament that involves lifestyle, and especially homosexuality, and you're guilty or you're being charged with the crimes of hate speech. And it's coming to America. If we don't do something about this now, it's coming to America, and we need.
Where the rubber meets the road is, while this is coming to America, are you going to let that stop you from talking about it? Because that's what's important.
No, not at all. And I think Coach is on board too. I can't speak for Coach, but I mean, you're not going to shut up.
I would bet I know what Coach's answer would be. Yeah, I don't see him being quiet about it.
Well, but again, we're already seeing the beginnings of it right now, aren't we? With even hate speech legislation, and all hate speech legislation is restricting the right of an individual to have freedom of speech. Listen, nobody has to agree with my beliefs, but I have the right to say them. I have the right to have them. And hate speech legislation was just the forerunner. It was just greasing the skids of taking away the actual freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Fellas, that's what's under assault when we go to Washington, D.C. So we would just ask as many people who can to possibly join with us. We have our marching orders and the instructions and everything right there on the website, saltandlightbrigade.org, and they get a chance to, if they want to, come and meet Doug and Joe Hagmann. And we're not trying to make this something that famous people are going to be there, but you guys, it matters enough to you guys that you're coming, and it matters enough to a lot of other people that I know that are coming. And those who can't, please, just do it right there in your home. Just do it right there with your family.
Amen.
And Doug and Joe, you guys are on the radio 5 nights a week, and you know that we hear a lot of people complain about what's going on and why isn't somebody doing something. Well, this is a pretty easy thing for people to do. And I think what we'll find out is really where the rubber meets the road. Are people really serious? Do they really want God to try to move, or are we just really comfortable enough that it doesn't really matter to us?
And I hope it's not the latter. I don't think it is. There are so many people who care about what's going on, and that's why we're Coach. That's why we're thankful that you put this together, and that's why it's important to us to make the trip to go out there and to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in this battle, because the next battle might be a little bit different than this one. And if we don't stand
there will be other ones. There will be other ones. I mean, no matter what happens, I think I told you last week, we're preparing no matter what happens. We have a plan with the Salt and Light Brigade no matter how this thing comes out. But for the sake of my children and grandchildren, I would sure hope that religion would be protected, the freedom of religion and freedom of speech would be protected. If it's not, then we're going to have to really tighten our belts and earn our meal money. But I want to appeal to heaven, try to get the attention of God, and see if maybe He won't give us a reprieve.
You said this is not about marriage. This is about you explained it very eloquently about what's going on. You know, the how big the stakes are, and you're right. It's never about what they appear to make it to be. It's about something much greater, much bigger. But we have to realize too that we're fighting on a level, and we have to engage the enemy on a level, on a spiritual level, on a prayerful level. And boy, I'll tell you. I get this now. And 5 years ago, I might have thought, well, what a waste of time this would be. Seriously, But as you mature in the Word, you start to understand how important this is and what a difference we can make, even if it's to throw a monkey wrench. If that's all we can do is throw a monkey wrench into the works just temporarily, we're doing something, aren't we?
Man, we are. It's like I often use this illustration that people say, well, Coach, it's read the Bible. This is what the Bible says is going to happen, and everything's just kind of lining up. And I call it living out pre-written history. But I use this illustration. I say, if you take your wife out to dinner tonight and you come home, and when you pull up your driveway, you look and you notice your house is on fire. Do you sit there and say, doggone it, I knew this is what was going to happen? Or do you grab a hose? And I grab a hose, brother. I got two hoses. I got one on the front and I got one on the back, and I'd shove my wife out the door and she'd go grab one hose and I'd go grab another to try to save what I can. And I really see that as where we are in America. I'm no dummy. I see what's going on around us. But maybe my water hose, maybe it can make a difference right now. Maybe it can buy us 5 more years or 10 more years. Doug, I just had the most precious little grandbaby, and my daughter's going to have another precious grandbaby here within the month. And you just think, Lord, really? It says, as it was in the day of Noah, it said that women would be marrying and given in marriage, and they'd be having babies would be suckling and all that stuff.
That's right.
And I just look in the eyes of that sweet little grandbaby we just had, knowing the other one's coming, and think, Lord, just a little bit more time, huh? Let's just give him just a little bit more time. And I want to appeal to heaven and do what a good granddaddy would do, and that would be go out and fight for his grandchildren.
And you know what, Coach? The enemy does not like it when we use the power of prayer against them. That's the ultimate weapon that we have, and the enemy is we're shaking up the enemy, and I have a feeling, and you're right. It's not a numbers issue. Personally, I don't care if there's 10 people, 100 people. It doesn't matter to me.
It isn't.
I could be. It wouldn't matter if I was the only one standing there, or you, whatever. But what matters is that this is being done, and I would urge, as Coach said, I would urge everyone tomorrow, please, if you can't make it, think of us and be in prayer between 12 and 3, or Sunday. Thank you. I don't even know what day it is, Coach. And I know you were traveling.
That too, buddy. I feel that one too.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, and Doug and Joe, I just want to compliment you guys. You would not believe the number of people that we hear from that you say, Coach, I heard about this on the Hagmann and Hagmann report. If I could copy you the emails that we would receive, that's why I know that this Hagmann and Hagmann family, this group of listeners you have out there, are the real deal. And just again, as I said last time, just honored as you'd give me access to them and to know how they're responding and how they really, really are concerned about this country, really do love the Lord, and really want to try to make a difference. And just want you guys to know that your folks are hearing and they're responding.
Man, our audience is just absolutely amazing, and I got to tell you, Coach, I'm afraid. Seriously, I would be afraid to let them down. Of all the people in the world, I mean, obviously, you think about your family, letting them down, but boy, to let our listeners down, no way. I mean, I would be afraid of that.
I was bragging on you guys to somebody the other day. I said, "How long has Rush Limbaugh been on the air? How long? And has anything gotten better?" Every day when he's behind that microphone talking about the Obama and the Democrats. Has anything gotten better?
That's a good
Has
point.
anything gotten better?
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, right? Nothing. And that's part of the plan. And I look at what goes on with the listeners on Hagmann and Hagmann. These are the people. These are the doers. These are the ones who see and understand and want to get involved. So again, I just thank God for you guys.
Well, thank you, Coach. Well, okay. Hey, look, safe travels as you head over to D.C. We will see you there, and we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you. All right,
I'll buy you a Coke when it's all over.
All right. That sounds great, and yeah,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Great, folks. Hey, listen, Doug and Joe, you know this. I tell people I don't think a whole lot about those people who always tell me that they'll pray about it, because most times they don't. And when people say that, I kind of chuckle, because I know they don't. I pray and I go, or as I like to say, I'm praying as I'm going.
There you go.
And I would just pray that those of you who can't make it would join us wherever you can, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. If you would just join us on Sunday from noon until 3, and offer up prayer that the Lord will do what He said in 2 Chronicles 7:14, forgive our sins and heal our land.
Amen. Thank you, Coach. Eloquent as always.
Look forward to seeing you guys. God bless you all out there. Hey, Hagmann and Hagmann crowd, God bless you guys. Thanks for stepping to the plate.
All right, thanks, brother.
You, Coach.
See you over there.
See you there, buddy.
All right, man. That was Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer. Folks, go to saltandlightbrigade.org, saltandlightbrigade.org, ptsalt.com as well. But Salt and Light Brigade has the information for Sunday. You know, we're stepping this up. We're taking this to new levels. And let me just say one thing. There are people, we are angering many people by doing this. There are people, I've never seen the level of vitriol, a hatred for us speaking out on this issue. Of all the issues we've talked about, this perhaps is the one issue where there has been more hatred, more vicious emails, more I'll just stop there. But let's just say that I have never seen the level of hatred displayed against us. And I'm sure, Coach, and I'm sure anyone who tackles this issue, that's how important this issue is to our enemy. And that's how psychotic these homosexual advocates are, because the agenda is, it's so important. This agenda is so important to them, and understanding the history behind it, but also what this will bring to the forefront. Understand the importance of this to the enemy. It's a critical, I mean, this is very critical. So this is like do or die, and believe me.
Well, I mean, it's complete hypocrisy. You know, one of the big arguments against the Christian religion that you hear from agnostics, atheists, and whatnot is, you know, don't shove your religion down our throat. And even the homosexual agenda, we don't want to hear your doctrinal ancient beliefs. Don't shove those beliefs down our throat. But that's exactly what they're doing. And like Coach said, if they want to get married, they could have a right to do so. Keep it in a courthouse, keep it out of the church. But they're attacking the church. They are going after the churches.
Right.
Trying to force them to be partakers of their sin.
Yeah, they're not after equal rights. They're after special rights.
As horrible as abortion is, they didn't start forcing abortions to be conducted in churches. You know what I mean? This is something that...
Well, that's kind of twisted.
Oh, I know.
But
you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see where you're headed with that.
I mean, that might be a bad example, but...
well...
You know, when, I don't know, people who aren't religious, don't belong to a church, never were not brought up like that. When they get married, what do? They go to the courthouse? They go to a church? I don't know. So, but you see this, these attacks, these advocacy, publicity stunts, the suing the different businesses that are Christian that don't want to be a part of it, suing or going after pastors of churches, especially churches with tax-exempt statuses. They're very easy targets.
501c3, and we all know how 501c3 started under Johnson when he was a senator from Texas back in 1954, I think it was, and amendment that was pushed through to get rid of his opposition, vocal opposition. If you understand how the 501c3 began, how that started, how that and people don't talk about that, and then I mean, it's important to understand how that is. And by the way, we are not a 501c3 organization. Never would be. Never will be.
Yeah, I don't understand that. To pay your own taxes, as Jesus instructed his disciples to do.
Well,
as Jesus did when he was alive.
Right.
You'd rather be subjects of the state and, turned over to what they're going to dictate you are and are not allowed to talk about, rather than fork over a little money.
But see, I don't fault the I don't fault the organizations who do carry a 501c3 status for the specific purpose of being tax exempt. I understand that because they are playing within the certain set of rules. Now,
but they're also subject to another set of rules.
Right, and
that gives and takes authority away from the Word and what is in the Bible.
Right,
but
Scriptures. But as time goes on, you're going to see this change. You're going to see a lot of 501c3 organizations suddenly not be 501c3s anymore. At least this is what I think is going to happen. And go ahead and take the tax exempt status. To say, okay, fine, we'll pay the taxes, except for the true money-making mega churches who will acquiesce to this twisted, convoluted heresy. Really, they are the ones. I mean, the pastors with the Lear jets, or the ministers with Lear jets, and mansions, and I never did understand. By the way, I never understood. Really, you need a mansion to conduct your.
Was that pastor in Atlanta? The Lord told me to ask for donations for a $60 million jet.
Yeah, I mean, seriously,
people starving out there, and that's what you can't serve two masters. That's what came to mind when that 501c3 came up. And
by the way, we're going to be taking our Gulfstream, flying it out of Cleveland to D.C. tomorrow. Our Gulfstream 650 or whatever that. Yeah.
We don't even fly first class when we fly.
We don't even fly at all, period. Well, just at one time, but yeah, exactly.
Let's take
we're at the top of the hour.
Top of the hour break, and let's come back and get back on track with our subject for the night, identifying the power behind the veil, as we have a lot to.
You're going to be surprised, folks, when we track this down.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Friday, June 12th edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. We have 2 hours left of the show. We have a lot of news to get into. Didn't take long. The headline on Judge.
Yeah.
We saw this coming a mile away.
Kabuki Theater, by the way.
Here's a few headlines. Paul Ryan vows this is not over. Sneak Republicans plan new Obama trade push. And that is just a few of the headlines there.
Oh, it's a done deal.
They're going to vote again on Wednesday. And I didn't know this. Nancy Pelosi was holding out for a reason.
What was the reason?
She has not been properly bribed.
Okay.
She has not been given what she has asked for.
What did she ask for, or is that?
I have to find it again. I just had it. Let me pull this up. I saw this. Okay. Yeah, she was. It was something for her district, or. Here, let me see. Here it is.
Okay. So this is all backroom dealing, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Without a doubt. And this, speaks to the system of perversion and corruption that runs this country, runs the legislative, executive.
Well, all right.
Of this country.
Yeah, and we have to ask, all right, if these legislators in the ostensible renegade, the renegade in chief, as we'll call him, not the president, but the renegade in chief, still, the background check still hasn't come back, and certainly we don't even know his real name, Barry Soetoro. But what's the hidden hand behind these people? Who's running this? And some people will automatically say, well, it's the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, or the Trilateral Commission, or the Bilderberg Group. But is there another organization above that? And yes, there is. If you follow the trail, and we were going to talk about who's running things and who's really behind everything. And of course, folks, it is the Committee of 300 at near the top of the pyramid of conspiracy.
Yeah, and Coach Dave said, the enemy never sleeps.
Yes.
And that's true. We have human enemies and we have spiritual enemies. We have human entities that are carrying out a evil spiritual agenda.
We do.
And this is not by accident. Michael Lake was on our show just this week on Wednesday. His book, The Shinar Directive, talks about what Nimrod set out to do, and what was left unfulfilled is now being fulfilled or being implemented.
Exactly.
And it's not by accident. You have these. We were talking about the Bilderberg yesterday. We were talking about Council on Foreign Relations. You and me watched a little mini documentary on the Rockefeller, and Trilateral Commission. We have all these little, power brokers, elite power brokers who control all the major sectors of society, from technology, economy, banking to.
But see, that does not go far enough.
War. But then you have these people are not that clever on their own. There is a force, as I said, an evil force behind the push for this globalized implementation of this agenda we're seeing. And one thing
it's the same. By the way, it is the same force that existed back in the time of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. And we are when people say we're fighting principalities and powers of darkness, these are the same
places, yeah.
These are the same powers and principalities we're fighting as we did, or as Christians and followers of
the dictionary's Webster Dictionary's definition of disguise is as follows: to change the customary dress or appearance of, to furnish with a false appearance or an assumed identity, to obscure the existence or true state of character.
Right.
Now, we see the agenda that these elitists are pushing. They are pushing, quote-unquote, equality, peace, social justice.
Oh, yeah.
They are pushing, peace and safety, equal rights, equal protection. But the Bible in Isaiah chapter 32 explains exactly what is happening. It talks about, and there's references, it says liberal in the Bible here. It says, the vile person shall be no more called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful. For the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity, to practice hypocrisy and to utter error against the Lord, to make empty the soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. The instruments also of the churl are evil, and he deviseth wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. But the liberal deviseth liberal things, and by liberal things shall he stand. And, when it says, for the vile person, the root word definition is stupid or wicked. When it says will speak, it means appoint, arrange, or declare. Villainy means foolish or morally wicked. Hypocrisy means moral filth.
Moral filth, and that's what we're seeing today.
I would say the liberal reference that we see in this scripture is a politician, is a person promising good things to the poor, to the needy. That could be spiritually poor, could be anybody who is perceived to have some kind of injustice, whether financially, no matter what it is.
Right.
But when they're talking about peace, when they're talking about safety, they are actually hurting these people even more.
Right.
It says that they're instruments, that they, the liberal devises liberal things. The instruments also of the churl are evil, and they devise wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words. So when they're talking about this equality, when they're talking about these morally filthy, morally wicked solutions, and they blanket it under peace, they blanket it under equality, they blanket it under safety, they blanket it under the good for the whole, it is just the opposite. So they're disguising their true intentions with something that is perceived to be good or acceptable.
That's correct.
And this is why, so much of the church body, from the congregations to the leadership, can't see what's going on.
That's right. Well, okay.
And it has to have working parts. You have the people carrying out the agenda. You have the spiritual darkness behind it.
Right.
And also behind, our everyday battle with sin.
Correct.
It's all working towards the end goal.
Yes, and that's why we have the guests come on and talk about people or entities like the Watchers or the Fallen Ones, and it's this that we're fighting against on the spiritual plane now. But what about on the earthly plane? Who are the people? Who are the groups? Who are the power brokers? Who's behind that veil? I mean, we know that the politicians, whether it be the president or the lawmakers, legislators, we know that they're not. They're puppets. But who are the puppet masters?
Well, let's start right at the top.
Well, wait a second though. Before you do that, I just want to mention that a lot of people will say this, and I'll turn it over to you. But a lot of people will talk about the Council on Foreign Relations. We do. A lot of people will talk about the Trilateral Commission. We do. The Bilderberg Group meeting, imminently as well. Now, exposure of these groups is good, but I contend that they are not the real puppet masters. There's a conspiracy above that. There are organizations, people above that. And people who stop with these groups do so either out of, I don't want to say ignorance, but out of lack of perhaps research, or they think, okay, we found the culprit. It's kind of like working a drug deal. If you've ever, and the people listening to this in law enforcement know, you bust the lower level drug, person, and you work that person to find their dealer, and then you work the dealer to find the major dealer, then all of a sudden you're at the CIA. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. But you see where I'm headed with this. But at one of the top groups, and I just really want to drive this point home in case you've never heard of this group, I really would like everyone to research the Council 300. Now, I'm going to get emails, and I'm going to turn this back to you here in a second, but I'm going to get emails saying, well, the Jesuits are really the ones behind this. Yes, okay, there is an element here. There's the Jesuit power structure. I get that, okay? I understand that. The Vatican, what's going on in the Vatican, the Jesuit power there, the Black Pope, I get all that. But what about the key group, the core group of people? Now, the Jesuits, for example, have influence into the Committee of 300, as do other certain sects, S-E-C-T-S, and spiritual organizations have power and influence into the people who are at the top, meaning the Committee of 300, being the capstone, if you will, or an amalgamation of these groups at the top of the pyramid, or the capstone of the pyramid.
Absolutely. Well, the capstone of the pyramid is Satan. It is evil.
Right.
And I'm finding a scripture here. I got it here. John 8:23, and it says this. This will all start at 8:21. It says, then Jesus said unto them, I go my way, and ye shall seek me, and ye shall die in your sins. Whither I go, ye cannot come. Then said the Jews, will he kill himself, because he saith, whither I go, ye cannot come? And he said unto them, you are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. And it goes on to say, you will die of your sins if you believe not that I am he. Ye shall die in your sins. And it goes on later in the scripture to explain further what is of this world. In John 8:37 it says, I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. I will speak that which I have seen with my father, and ye do that which ye have seen with your father. Well, who's their father? It goes on to say that you are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own. He is a liar, and the father of it.
Okay, now that's a spiritual component of what we're talking about here.
And notice in the beginning there, back to 8:36, it talks about I am not. Jesus says, I'm not of this world.
Right.
But your father, the devil, is of this world.
Right. So the human actors, those infused with that spirit of Satan, or the Satanists themselves, who are they? Well, okay, let's look. I
just have a problem with this dollar bill, that capstone. People always say, that's the eye of God, the all-seeing eye of God.
That is
not the all-seeing eye of God.
Which God are we talking about?
They're talking about the God of this earth.
Right. The Eye of Horus, and that goes back to Osiris and of course Tom Horn and Paul McGuire and others talk about that. So, I mean, this is so in your face. Okay, the conspiracy, it's undeniable. But you know what? Who seriously now, when we're talking about this, who really takes the time out to look at a piece of paper, meaning a dollar bill, and look in the back and say, "Oh yeah, look at that. That great seal there. That's the Eye of Horus, and that the 13, which is infused through the numbers in the seal. People don't believe that, because we've been carrying this stuff around. These are talismans, by the way, for the Satanists. But anyway,
and we're going to be in Washington D.C. tomorrow. All the symbolism in the world lies there, back to ancient Babylonian symbolism that fills the city.
Well, you know what? I'll just I'll give you a little bit of a teaser here, I suppose. We at a certain point tomorrow, we're going to be meeting with someone who promised to take us to certain areas of Washington D.C. that are not normally available, open, and hopefully we can get some documentation about what's going on and about the level of symbolism, and bring it back and explain it in our terms. But anyway, to bring this to the present day, you're looking at the passage, and this will pass, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is not really about trade, as Coach Dave Donmeyer said. The Supreme Court decision on marriage is not about marriage. Well, this TPP is not about trade. Okay?
Many of the chapters are about trade. They're about, healthcare. They're about in copyright infringement. They're about all these other, just looking at the actual legislation that was voted on today that will be passed, the H.R. 1314, the Trade Act. I'll just read some of the table of contents here, because it has, basically nothing, a little bit to do with trade. Trade's used as a term to get countries intermingled and associated with this, under the auspice of we're going to group together to trade with each other. But what they're doing is redistribution of wealth.
Absolutely.
And some of the subsections in this bill and legislation have absolutely nothing to do with trade. Foreign investment is intellectual property. Let's see, regulatory practices, and they don't have these all laid out in the table of contents, so I got to scroll down and grab them as I see them. But there is, healthcare, currency manipulation, foreign currency manipulation. Yep. Let's see, anti-corruption, dispute settlement and enforcement. They have remedies for laws.
Yeah, hang on a second. I think that does need a bit of explanation because, and it's scary when all of a sudden you're finding people who you normally disagree with, you're agreeing with them, and you're wondering, okay, well, what's going on here? Because for example, when you find yourself publicly agreeing with some of the most liberal or progressive people, it just it's crazy. But the part that you just mentioned would place companies or United States citizens, if you will, in the United States companies under an international tribunal. In other words, instead of being, for example, if they're accused of doing something wrong, they'll be thrown into an international tribunal instead of a court here in the United States. I just want to bring that. It
definitely
forward.
Has a lot to do. There's an environmental chapter in here. There is international law.
What is it, ISDS or something like that?
Yeah, and did you see Loretta Lynch has internationalized? She is has been spearheading, prosecuting people for crimes that were committed outside of the U.S. that have nothing to do with the U.S. Like the soccer thing, was it FIFA?
Right.
I mean, so far she's prosecuted more non-citizens for crimes that weren't committed or had nothing to do and was not in the jurisdiction of the U.S. than any other attorney general.
Correct.
And she hasn't been there that long.
Yeah.
They're moving towards this international system of law.
Well,
and that's how you know the Constitution is null and void.
Exactly, and well,
because authority gives them the right to do that.
Well, precisely.
You're an Australian, and you, who knows? It could be a little incidental thing to a crime you commit in Australia. Who's the United States Attorney General the right to come prosecute?
Or who gives your rights over to an international tribunal? In other words, as an American citizen, or if you're listening to this in Canada as a Canadian citizen, your government is giving you up for prosecution, or maybe more aptly termed persecution, by an international tribunal, as opposed to the laws of your own nation. So you are being subjugated to an international court under this TPP. But really quick, as I mentioned, the TPP is not about trade. That's what they say it's about. But and you gave some examples. But let's just go back in time for a moment and look at NAFTA just briefly here.
And remind me to get back to international law when you're done, because I found the section on sovereignty here.
All right. Well, what did NAFTA? What was NAFTA? The North American Free Trade Agreement. And we're investigators, so it's important for us to take a look at things like NAFTA, GATT, WTO, and compare those. We look at those like individual crime scenes, and when you put them all together, we are seeing the work here of a serial killer, or serial killers more appropriately. And who are the serial killers? Well, they're the Committee of 300 and their offshoots, and the globalists who comprise these secret societies. And the killing is not necessarily of people. When I reference serial killers, I'm talking about killing off our rights and our sovereignty. It's the killing of our nation. It's a killing off of the middle class. And it's interesting how many people are saying, well, Obama, for example, is killing off, or he's killing off the middle class, or the TPP will kill off the middle class. While that's true, it doesn't strike. No one strikes, very few, that is, actually go far enough and say, wait a minute, there's people above this in control. What happened with NAFTA? As you look at NAFTA, you find that it was initially a project of the Committee of 300, And the Committee of 300 is this organization of 300 individuals who the most powerful of the powerful families in the world. And NAFTA was a natural extension of the war on American industry, on American agriculture, on the industrialized nation of America, as set out in the Club of Rome's 1969 post-industrial zero-growth position papers. If you remember or if you research this whole process, if you go back to 1969, if you go back to the Club of Rome, 1969, post-industrial zero-growth population or position papers, that was overseen by Secretary of State Cyrus Vance and a team also combined with a team of one world government scientists. NAFTA, when you look at today, you look at what happened, I think it's safe to say that NAFTA probably delivered the most, just an incredible blow against the American middle class out of any piece of treaty, legislation, or whatever you want to call it. The forerunner of the attack on U.S. domestic markets, going back a little bit further, was the Wilson presidency. Okay, you got to go back to Woodrow Wilson now, Colonel Edward Mandell House. You go back into that time, that period of history where Woodrow Wilson acquiesced to the power brokers at the time, and later did a mea culpa about it. But it was Woodrow Wilson who allowed and signed off on the tariff acts and the progressive income tax, which is a plank of the Communist Manifesto. The NAFTA position paper, I digress there a little bit, but I just want to say this, the NAFTA position paper, written by the Club of Rome, was first given to California Governor Jerry Brown back in the 1970s. This is how far back these people were planning NAFTA. You're not going to hear about this on the History Channel. That's why we do the research. That's what you pay us for. Jerry Brown, at the time, well, he thought the idea was just a little bit ahead of its time, so they shelved it, so to speak, until 1992, when on the Committee of 300, on their instructions, it was given to none other than George Herbert Walker Bush. So, given the go-ahead, he began to push NAFTA, using Canada as kind of a barometer of sorts to see how the trade pact would sit with the Canadian people first. And it's interesting because when you look at that period of time back in 1992 and start going through the newspaper articles, now I'm not talking about the internet story, I'm talking about the actual print media at the time, you find out that Canada's Prime Minister Brian Mulroney at the time was assisting Bush, George H.W. Bush. Well, he was another Committee of 300 member, or messenger, shall we say. And the idea behind NAFTA was to destroy the industry, the industrial bases of Canada and America.
What do you mean? We have a lower unemployment rate now than we did before NAFTA.
That's true. I forgot about that.
If you don't count the unemployed.
If you don't count the... That's pretty good. Well, it was to take down the middle class at the same time. And with its passage, the post-industrial zero-growth plan, it just was pushed forward. And the situation was... Paul McGuire talks about Bertrand Russell. And the situation was like Bertrand Russell described in his ideas about culling excess population and getting rid of useless eaters. You're familiar with what I'm talking about. Well, the Committee of 300 saw that the post-industrial growth plan was falling behind schedule even in 1992, although it was held back by Jerry Brown. Anyway, so what they did was they took steps to speed up the dissolution of America's industrial base by exporting it to Mexico and other foreign countries I mean, they didn't have any trouble doing so. And then you heard, and that puts into context, Joe, what you played from Ross Perot. And at the time, going back into time and looking at that Ross Perot during his candidacy for a third party, him being publicly mocked and ridiculed by a number of talk show hosts at that time. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, so this is how, I mean, this is the power now. And this is how long and how none of this is happening by accident. For example, the TPP is not here at this moment in time just because it happened to fall on June 12th, 2015, today, and for the vote, or in June of 2015. No, you have to understand that this has been planned for a long time, just like NAFTA was planned for a long time. They pulled back on it, and then they've pushed it forward to make sure it got through and was implemented. And the people that are behind the scenes, the hidden hands of this, are the Club of 300, or the Committee of 300, and the Club of Rome, and those groups at the top of the pyramid, who are really their spiritual advisors, so to speak, or their spirits, like we are Christians. We worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They, of course, worship the God of, they worship Lucifer. And that also should put into perspective when we talk about the club, or the Committee of 300, and the Club of Rome, and the various other high-level organizations, these societies. That should put into perspective the reason for not just the Bilderberg meetings, but that should also put in perspective what they do and why there is a Bohemian Grove. I mean, we talk about the Bohemian Grove, right? It's not a social club for perversion, for the sake of perversion. No, it's to worship their god, their god of perversion, their god Moloch, their god Horus, and their god Lucifer, I should say. So all of these various things are connected. When you start digging and you start getting at the real truth, the truth that has been documented and exists in the archives of history, you'll see this pattern emerge, and you'll see shall we say, in the crime scene, the blood droplets traced back to the murder weapon in this case being the TPP, in the 90s being NAFTA, GATT, and WTO, and then the murderers being the people who are the messengers of the Committee of 300 and others, the murderers being, in this case, we look today at Obama and Boehner and Paul Ryan and the globalists, of course, but they are just the bagmen for the people behind the veil, and the people behind the veil are the Committee of 300, the Jesuits, the Club of Rome, and these other groups, and they have offshoots such as the CFR Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg. Okay, so understand the pecking order here. Don't stop at Bilderberg. Don't stop at the CFR or Trilateral Commission. Go. Keep going, because you'll find more behind that, and ultimately you get to the God of their God, and you see that we are fighting against powers and principalities of darkness, which is why, and just to bring it one more step. This is why this is where the relevance of the research done by Steve Quayle is so important, and Tim Alberino. This is why, Tim Alberino goes down to Peru and looks at these ruins, because it speaks to the God that is being worshipped by the very people in power. This is why, and you'll notice too, oh boy, how can I put this? You'll notice that I'll just come right out and say it, God does, just as God brings people into your life, He removes them, right? Sometimes you have to recognize that you're not dealing with people whose intentions are consistent and objectives are consistent with yours, with ours. So sometimes you've got to make some changes into, allow people to go in different directions. This is why, there are some people that say they worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when in fact they chant Babylonian chants elsewhere, right? There's a lot of perversion of not just the gospel. And not just the laws of. There's a lot of cloak and dagger infiltration into organizations. Trust me when I tell you that. We talked about an organization. We talked about a talk show host this week, didn't we? Who said, who had some CIA influence or was influenced by the CIA. Joe, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Enough said on that.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And we still haven't talked with. I haven't talked with Jim and Joanne Moriarty since the show, but I did want to follow up with him about that privately. And a few things. Remember I told you Pelosi was holding out for something?
Yes.
She demands a highway funding bill in return for her trade support. Just hours after Minority Leader Pelosi helped sink President's trade agenda, she indicated that Democrats might be willing to support the trade bill if Congress passed a long-term highway funding bill. The overwhelming vote today is clear indication that it's time for Republicans to sit down with Democrats and negotiate a trade promotion authority bill that is a better deal for the American people. The prospects for passage of such a bill would greatly increase with the passage of a robust highway bill.
Well,
interesting.
See, okay, now that to me
and she
provides
said for job security for the American people who will lose their job due to the trade bill.
Okay, but folks, I'd like you to think about it this way. That provides a public alibi. And I'm sure most everyone listening to this program has watched police shows before. And let's say somebody does something, or let's say somebody's suspected of doing or being questioned about a crime, and they're sitting in I don't know how many people have ever sat in their little room with a cop and they're questioning you. Okay, it's rather uncomfortable. But let's say you're being questioned about a crime, and maybe you didn't do anything wrong. You're not even involved in the actual crime that's under investigation. But they're asking you for an alibi. You give the police an alibi, but you give them the wrong alibi. Or let's say you give them an alibi that's basically true, but not precisely true. Why are you doing that? Because you've got something else to hide. Most often, you see this in criminal cases where the subject who's being interviewed is trying to hide some affair from, doesn't want the police to know about an affair that he or she is having because they're going to talk to the wife next, and, it would just be bad for the marriage, all right? Well, to me, that's on par with what Nancy Pelosi just did. She's giving the American public the public alibi. All right.
And you remember when we first started talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Trade and the Authority, the TPA, we went over the amount of money that were paid to Republican senators who voted yay and Democrats who voted yay. It was about $20,000 per Republican senator and $10,000 per Democratic senator, over $1 million plus.
Wow.
And I mean, it doesn't get more clear than that. I probably still have the article in our archives here on our studio computer, but the story I looked at today reiterated the point that, you know, they're financially being rewarded, the lawmakers, for their vote.
Well, okay. We can go back to NAFTA and look at how that played out with NAFTA. And I'm digging through my notes here. Okay.
Well, there was only, what, like four people who voted on that because they did it on Christmas Eve and secret, and
yeah.
So they split maybe a couple 100,000 each on that one.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Also, the text in the bill about sovereignty, Section 108.
Yes,
it
please.
Says, United States law to prevail in event of conflict. No provision of any trade agreement entered into under subsection 103, nor the application of any such provision to any person or circumstance that is inconsistent with any law of the U.S. It goes on to say that no provision of any trade agreement entered into this section shall prevent the United States, any state of the United States, or any locality of the United States from amending or modifying the law of the United States. It does not talk about citizens. It talks about the protection for the governmental authorities and jurisdictional authorities.
Well, that's slammed our sovereignty, obviously, and that's...
Yeah, in dispute settlement reports, no law shall have a binding effect on the law of the U.S., the government of the U.S., or the law or government of any state or locality of the U.S.
Wow.
That's the sovereignty section of this H.R. 1314 Trade Act. So
okay.
And I'm still scrolling down.
Well, getting back to, I just want to say, you know, we talked about graft for people, NAFTA. If you go back in time at NAFTA, some staff members of the House and Senate committees received Christmas gifts from the Mexican government. One of the key players in I'm sorry, I was looking at my notes here. There's a whole lot given out to lawmakers and the people who facilitated NAFTA at the time. NAFTA proposals, by the way, they were accepted, of course, by leaders of Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., and they became the major turning point in the history of North America. NAFTA was a watershed for the American and Canadian middle class. When you combine it with the European Economic Council, which was the EEC in Europe, what we saw with NAFTA was a critical phase of the strategy to usher in a one world government, new world order. That kind of put the capstone on that part of the phase, or that part of we saw that completed. Now, let me take you back again to NAFTA during that period of time. Russia was opposed to any type of a trade agreement, given its situation at that moment in history. Boris Yeltsin, even with the help of Boris Yeltsin playing into NAFTA, Russia wanted no part in this new world order. Okay. Now, as soon as NAFTA was accepted, what did NAFTA bring to the United States?
What bring to the United States?
NAFTA. Okay.
It's more like what it brought on employment.
Right, because it created an income for Mexico of $100 billion.
Yep.
It devastated our economy, the United States economy. It caused a disastrous decline in industrial production in the United States. Immediately, it cost 100,000 jobs. Well, when I say immediately, within the first 2 years of its existence, it resulted in U.S. standard of living going down in a manner never seen in the history of our country. It resulted in pollution being re-exported to the U.S. in products produced in Mexico. Some of the foods imported were often toxic. Now, think about that in the context of the TPP. Are we repeating the same mistakes again? No, we're repeating or watching the repetition of the same game plan, the strategy again. A lot of the products that were not allowed into the United States were allowed under NAFTA. They were once disallowed by the USDA. They were the FDA and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But NAFTA said, hey, no problem. They canceled all that out.
You know how far back GATT goes?
I don't know.
1947.
Okay. And that's an important point to make. I'm looking at NAFTA here.
I'm trying to pull up this info here.
But see, with the TPP, obviously, the initial phase of the TPP, if you go to Wikipedia, everyone says, it started, in 2005. No one is connecting the previous crimes, if you will. Just look at this as a continuous course of criminal activity by a serial killer, or serial killers known as the global governance people, and having multiple lives, shall we say, because it extends across generations. When did this start? Did this start in 2005? No, this started long ago. And NAFTA, GATT, all of these are components of this New World structure. I don't know. Am I making sense? Are you understanding where we're headed? I mean, am I being clear on this? That we've got this, that what we're seeing today is merely the finishing off of America, where we received quite a blow, to our sovereignty in our country under NAFTA and other such agreements, and people were rushing to state, well, we need to vote these people out and vote the conservatives in, but you're seeing conservatives turn. Paul Ryan, all of these people saying...
Well, they never were conservatives, but yeah.
Right, but why? Well, because they're not the ones in charge. Well, why not? If we've got a system of voting, what's going on here? It's the people behind the curtain, the people, the power that's behind people, the faces of power. It's not who you think it is. It's the power behind the veil, and that's who we're trying to identify here. And I urge people not to stop at the CFR, not to stop at the Trilateral Commission, not to stop at Bilderberg. Go on beyond that. Is there a secret organization or organizations beyond that? Yes, there are. Yes, there is. The Committee of 300. By the way, Dr. John Coleman has a lot of great information about the Committee of 300. In fact, he has a lot of great information about NAFTA and other such agreements. But to dissect all of this shows you exactly what's going on today. Silence of the Lambs. Remember that movie? Yeah, I don't know how many people saw it, but speaking of serial killers and psychopaths, which we have in power, the Clarice, the investigator, and Anthony Hopkins, the psycho killer. So there was a conversation, and he said, to understand, you've got to go back to the original crime. Now think about that in terms of the politics and events taking place. To understand what's going on. You've got to go back to the original crime, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. And so when you look at for example, NAFTA, the government of Mexico, pro-NAFTA, they had implanted in the Clinton administration, or at least 5 backers of NAFTA from the government of Mexico were infiltrated the Clinton administration, the Clinton cabinet. Go back and look at, for example, Howard Nussbaum, Lloyd Benston, Warren Christopher, Ron Brown, remember him? And Mickey Cantor. Who is it today? Maybe the most important question is, who isn't it today? It was, perhaps when you look at things like NAFTA, it's more important now, it's more important than ever, not to regard NAFTA as past, but to be fully aware of the depth of the campaign that was conducted against the American middle class, so that such a betrayal can be exposed again, or so that betrayals like NAFTA, for example, the TPP, can be exposed. Look, we need to expose the true power behind this initiative. And that's what we're trying to do.
Have to go back to read these laws.
That's right.
Because there's a lot in here, and I'm saying that because I've skimmed over some of them before, but there's a lot in here.
And I mentioned Dr. John Coleman before. He points out that the primary issue with NAFTA was that, for example, like the UN Treaty and like the Panama Canal Treaty, decisions that affected the future of the United States, they were, and I'll add this, always are, made by special interest groups directed by what? By who? By the Committee of 300. Decisions are made not on the merits of whatever is being decided. No. If that was the case, NAFTA would never have been passed, and certainly the TPP would not even be under consideration. The UN Treaty and the Panama Canal Treaty would have been defeated. No, you have to look at who they benefit. The problems exist with the Committee of 300, the Club of Rome, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission. They're the ones who have deliberately destroyed the United States industrial base. We need to expose these people, weed out these secret cabals that are destroying our country. The TPP is filled with delusion, deception, false and misleading information. NAFTA is filled with delusion, deceptive, false and misleading information. NAFTA, that treaty was bogus in its stated intentions. The TPP is bogus in its stated intentions. What NAFTA did, exported hundreds of thousands of jobs to Mexico to undercut living wages here in the United States. There's no way of escaping the facts of what NAFTA has already done. There will be no escaping the final nail, hearing the sounds of the final nails in the coffin after the TPP is pushed down our throats. And and I think that I believe in my heart of hearts that we are having some effect on the TPP, on its on balling it up here. Maybe I'm delusional myself. I don't know, but I do think that exposure, the sunlight to this, I think it is making a difference. But so I hope that at least in this sense, I hope I've made. I hope I've been somewhat clear. To point the fingers, identify those behind the veil, the power behind the veil, and with at least some level of clarity. Now, with specificity, we can talk on that after the break. But hopefully, we're getting some information to you that's enriching your.
You want to open up the phone lines for the third?
Well, yeah, we can do that. I mean, if certainly we can do that, because I'm sure if you have any questions about what we're talking about this evening, we'd love to hear it. Or if there's any issues with respect to what we're going to be doing this weekend, Sunday in Washington D.C. Because this, folks, or TPP, it's not going away. This information that we're giving you, it's pretty heavy information, and it's going to involve you having to do a lot of your own research to verify that what I'm saying, what we're saying, is correct. That there is a power much greater behind the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg people, that does lead to this Luciferian. When we talk about this Luciferian agenda, who are we talking about? Well, we're talking about this group of people, of families. Committee of 300, for example. Club of Rome. Again, we're talking about the most secret society in the world. This group that we're talking about knows no national boundaries. They adhere to and work above. Well, they adhere to no laws, but work above the laws of all countries. And they ultimately control every aspect of politics and of even religion and commerce and industry, banking, insurance, you name it, the drug trade, the oil industry. It's a group that's answerable to no one except their members and their god, Lucifer. This conception of a secret elite group, they exercise control over every aspect of our lives. And you know what? You might say this is all, this is all just conspiracy nonsense. Well, just because it might be beyond our immediate comprehension does not mean it's incorrect. Do the research. See, most of us here in America, if you're like I was, you'll say, this is a bunch of bunk. It can't happen here. We've got a constitution. We've got a constitutional republic, but it is happening here. But yeah, we can take calls after the break.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour on this Friday edition. After we're done with this hour, we're going to hang up the microphones, go to sleep, and wake up and head out to D.C. to go pray with Coach Dave in front of the Supreme Court building. And if you can't join us and you want to be there in spirit, then pray with us on Sunday from 12 to 3.
Yes, please. And, and just understand how important this is. So we have to pull out all the stops and then pray. Pray like we've never prayed before, and prepare to fight.
Came on a week ago Friday in the first hour.
Yep.
And talked about the dynamics of the Supreme Court and which way he was listening to the open arguments, and he has it figured out. At least he thinks he does, and I tend to agree with him. I haven't done the research and paid attention to the case like he has, but he says one vote is all is needed to stop this. And if our efforts to pray for discernment and guidance upon the Supreme Court can make that difference.
Look, God,
why should we sit on the sidelines instead of
yeah
being the difference?
That's right.
Making the difference through the Lord's actions.
We can't give up now. We have to go full bore and preserve the sanctity of marriage. I know that sounds retrograde.
I mean, all of us pray. You know, what if there was something going on in our lives, or our family's lives, or our friends' lives that people normally pray about? What if you didn't pray about this? Would the Lord take action? I mean, I don't know. He could. He might.
Well,
but how much more likely is that action
right
going to be taken if there are fellow brothers who are standing with that person in prayer?
Absolutely.
So it is very important. If you can't be there, just say a prayer from between 12 and 3.
You know what I love to see, and we say that numbers don't matter. They really don't. I mean, I don't care if I was the only one there or if 10 people were there. It doesn't matter the numbers, because we know that prayer works from wherever you're at. It's not geographically specific. It's more symbolic to be, of course, in front of the Supreme Court. But I'd just love to see thousands of people out there. Only because, can you imagine? Just imagine the effect that would have, psychological effect on the non-believers. Just talk about psyching them out a little bit. It would just, to me, it just would seem. And how would the press handle something like that? It would be interesting. It would, boy. And we can move mountains. I mean, look, I know that.
There's a story in the New York Times. Child preachers of Brazil, the youngest evangelists in the country's Pentecostal church, try to balance their demand of youth with those of their faith. And it's a story about, at least as far as I've gotten so far, an 11-year-old girl who they started a radio show about the Bible and is pastoring a congregation.
Really?
And miracles are happening. People are being healed. People are coming to the Lord. And this is an 11-year-old girl.
Huh.
I know I'll put this in the chat room. It's on the New York Times, but that's a picture here.
Oh, wow. Oh, interesting.
I mean,
well,
anybody can make the difference.
That's right. Yeah. And we need to, let's ask and let's join together in prayer. Prayer is the most powerful weapon we've got. And hey, you know what? You might not, if you don't have any plans on Sunday, please join us. And if you can't, certainly we understand. It's not going to be a social gathering. It's not going to be, speakers. It's not, no. It's just going to be solemn prayer. And
it's what's needed.
Yeah.
One more story I'm going to hit, and then we're going to go to some phone calls. There is a new report that the CIA will be losing its funding. Lawmakers take aim at secret CIA Syria effort and slash the funding. This is
so they're going to have to rely on the on the heroin and drug funds.
Yeah, like the old days, the black book.
Right.
Key lawmakers moved to slash funding of a secret CIA operation to train and arm rebels in Syria, a move that U.S. officials said reflects rising skepticism of the effectiveness of the agency program and the Obama administration's strategy in the Middle East. House Intelligence Committee recently voted unanimously to cut as much as 20% of the classified funds flowing into a CIA program that U.S. officials said has become the agency's largest covert operation overseas, with a budget of $1 billion a year. There's a great deal of concern on a very bipartisan basis with our strategy in Syria, a Representative Adam Schiff, a Democrat from California, stated. The provisions that the bill cited is the growing pessimism that the United States will be in a position to help shape the aftermath of a Syrian civil war. The measure has provoked concern among CIA and White House officials who warn that pulling money out of the CIA effort could weaken the U.S.-backed insurgents or ISIS. The White House declined to comment, of course. And it gets into more depth and detail, and it goes on to say that the president has expanded the U.S. military's role against the Islamic State. Yeah, right. I saw somebody post I don't know if it was an article or just a comment or a sentence from the article in chat that Hezbollah is training up tens of thousands of soldiers to fight ISIS. What side are we on?
On the wrong side, obviously.
All right, let's go to the phone calls. We do have quite a few on hold. We're going to go to mystery caller. I don't know if this is international. If you heard the beep, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann report.
Yeah, I'm on the beep, so.
All right.
I got a question on that. I don't have a computer. I'm listening on the phone. And my son's got a computer. Is there any way downloading a CD off of you in case I want to listen to it again?
Are you talking about our programs in general?
One of your programs. I'd like to listen to your programs again. I don't have a computer, so.
Okay.
Is there any taping or getting a CD off of your buying one from you or getting it off the computer? My son's got a computer.
Okay, if your son has a computer, we have a SoundCloud. There's a SoundCloud account. Okay. If your son has a computer, it's a real simple process to download to his computer, and he can burn off a CD, or he can give you a thumb drive, or you can have a thumb drive.
HagmannandHagmann.com. On the top right-hand side, there's a few different options to listen. There's the RSS feed. The furthest one on the right is SoundCloud. If you click that, you can download a lesser size audio file than what is given by BTR.
Well, wait a second, caller. You've got like a cell phone, right? A smartphone or something, or whatever you use to listen.
No, I've got a regular house phone.
Okay. All right. How are we going to help this gentleman out?
I don't want to give his number out over the air, and it all came up all one, so I don't know.
No, don't do that. Okay, so we got to.
Do you have access to email?
Well, through his son.
Yeah. Are you on YouTube or anything like that?
Yes.
Well, yes, we are. Shoot.
There's actually quite a few different channels that upload all of our shows. If you were to search Hagmann and Hagmann Report, I'm sure on YouTube you can find every show.
Caller, if you can do this, if you can ask your son just to send us to the studio email. If you go to Hagmann, ask your son to go to HagmannHagmann.com, and through the contact us form, send us an email. Okay, just put "my father called" in the subject line. Okay, and that way we'll have his email. We'll put some instructions in there where he can download some of our shows, and if he wants, he can burn them to CD or whatever. But we'll give you some options to listen. That's why what you're calling about is actually you're just a little bit ahead of schedule. We're going to be creating, for people like yourself, creating methods to listen to our programs.
Confiscated the Department of Homeland sound vehicles.
What's your email address?
It's studio@HagmannandHagmann.com. That's studio@HagmannandHagmann.com. Okay, or just simply go to HagmannandHagmann.com, click on the Contact Us form, and
okay.
Okay, and then you can just put in the subject line, "My father called," or whatever, and we will respond. We'll respond back to you with instructions on what's the best way to do this. But we're preparing, or we're setting up the equipment to mass produce some things for people like yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. I tell you, you got some real winners on there. That one guy, that Duvall or Duval.
Dan Duvall. Yeah.
Oh, he was eye-opening. Tell you what, and what he said was right, though.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Anything went wrong in that. It was kind of far out, but it's true.
Oh, I mean, there was not enough duct tape in the office here, to keep my head wrapped when he talks because
we met him in Columbus.
Yeah.
And, we went out for coffee, and we sat there for about an hour and a half and talked. And he went through and he was explaining this to me then, and my head was bleeding when we were done.
Oh.
I couldn't ask enough questions, and he couldn't put it in simpler English for me to even understand it. But the more we talked and the more I read on his books and such, I got a better idea. But still, it's very convoluted, and there's a lot to it, a lot more to it than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it is. And as long as you got examples in the Word, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what he's saying. It was, I know kind of a lot of stuff, but I couldn't find one thing wrong with it.
No, and you start talking about the quantum physics aspect of prayer, hence our efforts on Sunday. I mean, prayer, for example, does penetrate different dimensions, and certainly focused prayer can make a big difference. So, yeah, Dan Duvall, what a fantastic mind.
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Lake, too, fantastic mind.
And Russ Dizdar is going to be on with us next Wednesday.
Yep.
And he'll probably have a lot more to add to what Dan laid out.
That's right. So.
And that Paul McGowan, McGuire, he's pretty sharp too. I tell you what, I could listen to him several times. So.
Oh yeah, he's incredible.
You got a lot of people on there, but it's you can hear stuff on your show you can't hear anywhere else, and that's what I really like about you guys. You don't just take today's news and talk about it,
Yeah, so, anyone can do that, and we sometimes we don't do that very well. So that's why we bring other people on who are a heck of a lot smarter than we are. Let me tell you. And
well, I know in my case you don't have to go too far, but.
I got you, brother.
But I do appreciate all you guys do out there. So thank you very much, and God bless you, and you have a safe trip. And if nothing else, we can be praying for you when you're there. We don't have to be there, and we can be there in the spirit.
Amen, brother. And do send an email. Send an email. We'll try to fix you up with a couple of different things, a couple of different methods. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
God bless you.
Thanks for the call. Have a good night. Yeah, as you said, we're working on getting more outlets and being more easily accessible in our broadcast.
Yes.
And when he was asking about how to do that, I was thinking of the Pentagon program 1033, where they distribute military equipment to local police departments. And I was wondering if we would qualify for some of those sound cannons, so we could put one,
a sound cannon
in every city to broadcast our show. We can apply. I mean, what's the harm?
Boy, talk about noise pollution.
At least we put them to good use. We're going to go to the next call, area code 708. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Doug.
Hey.
God bless you guys. Thank you for having Dave Dovenmeyer on. What a man of God, and what a great idea that he has put together with the Salt and Light Brigade. Kudos. Hey, by the way, that phrase I hear people say it often, and it is love the sinner yet hate the sin.
Right.
Yes.
That's a saying from Gandhi, who is not even a Christian. For a Christian, I'm not going to be using that phrase anymore. So
if we take that phrase away, just the whole phrase out of the picture, and just use the example of what Jesus taught us, he never told us to ridicule or put down anybody. He was the example and came here to save the sinners. And
we don't have to use the phrase.
Right.
The concept is
important. Well, see, they've made it hate speech when we love our brothers and sisters, and we really want them to turn from sin because we don't want them to fall into the devil's hell. But
right.
We've got everything so backwards, and, But the Bible does say that this is going to happen. And you know what? That, just preparing ourselves in our spirit is as important as everything else. And I believe even more so. So I thank you guys for all that you are doing. And, hey, hats off to, honest to goodness, Toffee. My father already received his Father's Day present, and it was a slab of toffee.
I'm telling you, that stuff is really, wow.
I haven't seen one complaint.
Out of this world. Out of this world. So thank you guys for all that you are doing. Keep up the good fight, because, you know what, the enemy wants to drag us down, and this is how we know we belong to the Lord, is that the enemy is going to keep trying to attack us.
That's right. We run toward the fire, toward the guns that are firing, because that's where the enemy is, So.
Yeah, but Jesus never said, hey, follow me and you can sit back in your lazy boy chair, put a blanket over your lap, and just just think that you're a Christian when you've said the prayer. He said, you're going to have persecution. People they're gonna hate you because of my name. He warned us that this was going to happen.
Yep.
If we didn't belong to him, the enemy would not be messing with us at all. So he would leave us all alone. So
Amen.
if you're a Christian and the devil ain't messing with you, you ought to work out your own salvation all over again.
That's right.
It's a red flag. If the enemy ain't coming after you, I'm sorry. You might want to question where you're standing with the Lord.
Boy, that's true.
Nice.
And we got some battle scars to suggest that we're somewhat on the right track, I guess, at times. But thank you. Points well made.
Amen, brother. Keep up the good work, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the call. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Area code 907. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
My name's Deborah, and I live in Anchorage, Alaska.
Anchorage?
And yes.
Wow.
Well,
it's great to hear from someone from Alaska.
Yeah. So, hey, first of all, do you guys still sending out your stickers?
We are. You know what? Are you?
Okay.
Okay. You're the one. Now wait a second. Let me ask you this.
I've emailed you several times. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And about 6 months ago, you emailed me. All right. Hang on a second here. I'm wondering if I.
There was an email.
When's the last time you sent me your information?
A couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I've kind of been laying off lately.
All right, hang on a second here. I've got to just check on something here. Talk amongst yourselves, guys.
Yeah,
okay, but anyway, so I was really excited that our radio station was going to broadcast Rick Wiles, because I've been wanting my pastor to hear him, as well as you, but he's like me, he has limited Wi-Fi. And then the next night, I was very sorely embarrassed that our Christian radio station had canceled his contract.
Yes.
Most Alaskans are not. You know, what I think of Alaska is that everybody has the right to say what they want to say, whether they agree or not. So I was pretty surprised.
To me, okay, and I have to say this again. If it's the I'm angry and upset that this is happening to Rick Wiles, and I do expect this to get the whole process to get even worse and to get even more divisive.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be. And so couple weeks ago in my church, I asked for prayers for the Supreme Court, and the response I got was quite interesting. It was, "We don't talk politics here."
Huh.
And I thought, whoa, this is going to affect our church.
Right.
Because we are a 501c3.
It's going to affect every 501c3 organization. It's going to affect all Christian, every Christian. People don't understand how the effect that this is going to have, the chilling effect this is going to have on Christians. And
yeah, it is. It is. I'm very, very concerned about it. But my prayers are with you guys. I can't actually hop in my car and drive to Washington to be with you, but I would love to. But you're in my heart and my prayers this
thank
weekend.
you. Thank you. Now, let me ask you a question without revealing. I'll be very cagey about this. In your address, the last two digits of your, I'll just use the last two digits of your house number. Would it be 51?
No.
Okay.
It's not. I'll send you another one. Another one.
You know what? If you want to send me an email, as soon as you hang up, send me an email.
Okay.
Or send an email to the studio. I promise you, as soon as the show is over, I will get those out to you.
Oh, I appreciate that. So
I promise.
While I was listening, I went to see how my senators and congressmen had voted on the TPP. And some fast tracking, and I noticed that all of them are Republican. The two senators, went for the fast tracking, and our congressman held out and said no. So I finished writing scathing emails to the senators, and I looked outside above my house, and there's a chemtrail with a big X. I don't know if it's related or not, but I just found it quite ironic.
Oh, man. Well, yeah.
I listen to you every night, and I appreciate you. You're about the only people I have in contact with, and I just appreciate all that you do, and
thanks.
The fact that you allow people to make presentations of whether you agree with them or not, and I just appreciate that you allow people to say what they have to say.
Well, that's the way we'd like to be treated if we were calling in, and I'm glad you think that's good. So, well, God bless you, and please, resend me an email. I apologize, and I will get that out. I promise, right after the show's over, and you'll have them in your hot little hands here next week. So.
Well, thanks, and
right.
Be safe driving to D.C. Love you guys.
Love you for listening. Thank you. God bless you. Take care and stay warm up in Anchorage, although it's probably warmer there than a lot of places.
It's hot today. It's been raining. It's hot today.
I'm just curious. What was the high temperature in Anchorage today? I got to ask.
It's 73 now, and it's 6:30. So.
Okay, 73. See? Hey, temperate climate. Interesting.
Yeah, but you guys got all the snow this winter. We didn't get any.
Yeah, we got, I think, 8.5 feet of snow, I think, when it was all said and done. So.
I think we got maybe 8 inches.
Wow, that's pretty funny.
Oh, man. Yeah, I moved to Anchorage for more temperate winter weather. That's what we need to do. God bless you. Thank you so much for the call.
All right, God bless you too.
All right.
Good night.
Oh. Yeah, Joe, I'll tell you.
We're going to go next to 508. 508, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys. I've been listening to you for a while, and I have been listening to see if I'd hear anything from you guys about John Kerry, his bicycle accident.
Yes.
And on Before It's News a couple days ago, I read that it was an assassination attempt, and he's in really bad shape, and they haven't said anything about it on the news. But it was on before it's news, but they sent a real high-tech plane to bring him back from France. And no more information in the Boston area or anything.
Well,
Wondered if you had heard any of that.
Yeah, we've heard all of the I don't know all, but we've heard numerous accounts of what happened, and we don't believe any of them except all we know is we're not getting told the truth as to we believe based on the conflicting information that we're not getting the truth on this. Now, was it an assassination attempt? There are certain sources that are pushing forward this information, some of whom we do not trust. On the other hand, there are some people who are pushing the same, or putting forth the same information, who have a decent track record of accurate information. Yeah, I think that there was something that some life-threatening event that did take place based on our research. We just haven't put together any type of investigative product to offer because of the lack of the lid of secrecy. I mean, we can speculate all day long, and I do believe, though. I mean, and I'm speculating now. I do believe that there's something very bad that happened, and I don't know the motives behind it, the reason behind it, with any level of specificity. But I think that our government is covering up something very major to prevent an international incident. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, had he been pressuring Israel? He had been in some meetings recently, hasn't he?
Yes. Well,
pressuring, and I'm wondering, are our government people starting to be judged? I thought Coach Dobermeyer had at one time, just spoken about that. There's going to be a time that our government, the corruptness is, I shouldn't say individuals, but the corruptness was going to be judged, that God was going to judge. And it's sobering, very sobering.
It is. And judgment can be meted out by God in a number of ways. I mean, the hand of protection can be lifted.
Right.
So exactly. And think back, too. Remember when Hillary Clinton had that concussion? Okay. Now, was she, I believe she was still Secretary of State at that point. Was she not? Joe? Yeah, she was.
It was right after the Benghazi thing, and I had wondered at the time if it was very convenient.
Well, yeah.
Because she didn't give any information out, and they really gave her a pass on it.
Right. Now it's very possible, although it was convenient, it's very possible too that she sustained that head wound from a hard landing of an aircraft during some secret, shall we say, secret negotiations in another country. Okay.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State position carries with it some inherent risks. I think that, and they're also expendable too. I'm not going to go down that road, but this Kerry situation stinks to high heaven, and people need to understand that.
Yeah, I had just another question. Have you heard of Gil Broussard?
Yeah.
He was just on Coast to Coast, and he has done some amazing research into the timing of the Planet X, Nibiru, and how it coincided the timeline of the flood and of the Exodus, and he postures that it comes around more often than the 3,500 years, but his research was incredibly compelling, and he's allowing people to download his research for free. If you go to YouTube and put in Planet 7X and his name, it'll bring it up. And boy, he'd be a real fascinating guest to have on your show. But his timeline is that Nibiru is going to hit on March 26th of next year, and his calculations have come through using computer, programs to set up the dates. But even the day that the hour stood still or the clock went backwards when Joshua that was fighting and he needed more time.
The sundial, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. He can even he could give you the date for that. It's really pretty amazing. At first it sounded like it was contrived and just more date setting, but as you listen to his resources and how he was able to come to those conclusions, it was really very frightening, for one thing, to hear, but also that God is so precise in correlating. He knew when different things happened, like something was happening to Hezekiah, and at the same time it was one of the prophets, and just the descriptions. And even going into like Chinese history, that the dragon comes from that planet, and how they gave the most accurate description of what had happened at the time when it came around. And he said that all the historical places that everyone on the planet had documented the times that this planet has come around, or I guess it's a planetoid something or other. It was, I don't know, pretty strange, but really very interesting, and I felt convinced after listening to him that he was even describing when Jesus was going to return from the computer models of just when this planet is coming around, and really makes it sound like everything that is measured in the universe according to this planet and its cycles all has to do with catastrophic events that have happened that the Bible clearly states and historical records show.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this isn't to be argumentative or to put down anything that you've researched or that the gentleman you referenced researched, but I've heard so much about Planet X, and the more I hear about it, and I was actually talking with a friend today about this, and I always have envisioned it as a metaphor of something coming. I mean, people have been claiming it's been in the sky for 5 years now, but yet we have no visual, can't see it. Some say it's a dark matter object, and you won't be able to see it unless it's in a certain position. I'm just not sure. I do believe there is something to it. I believe that it might not be a celestial object, or at least in the way we think, but I would just continue to do the research and look for actual proof of this planet. I don't think it's a planet.
We can look at the videos, though.
I think it's a metaphor of something else.
Yeah. Well, I just heard him today, and it was very compelling, and within a few months, he said, we'll be able to see it. He said, we will be seeing it within a few months. They can't hide it from us much longer because it's coming close. It's incoming.
Well, what did he say the effects would be? I mean, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, catastrophic. He said that the gravitational pull would cause, he said, like 3-mile high tsunami waves that probably within 100 miles of the coastlines would just be completely covered because of the asteroids that would be coming in. And he used the scripture about the thing that was, I think, in the book of Revelation. But he said, he talked to someone, or someone had contacted him who had been with NASA, and he had seen, this gentleman had seen, top secret transmissions. He was literally watching it, and it frightened him beyond, he couldn't talk about it. It's top secret and everything. But he said, I talked to someone who has literally seen it, but it's incoming. And is it Steve Quayle, I think, that has been writing about it?
Bob Fletcher has been prolific, and that's right. Yeah.
But he said that we'll be seeing it within the next few months. It'll be visible with the eye, and it's 6 to 7 times larger than the Earth. So we're going to be seeing this, like, in comparison, because it's so close, that it's like the sun coming toward the Earth, and it has affected the outer planets already.
Well, if it does come into our view of vision, we will definitely. That would be very interesting. But until that time, at least for me, just like Ronald Reagan warned about aliens, NASA warns about aliens coming here. And Project Bluebeam, we know that there are no aliens. There are angels and demons.
Well,
I have a different look on this planet. I've always have.
I'm going to download, or I'm going to look at the video she was referencing. We have some time to, during our travels. I'm going to take a look at what she's.
We can download a few of the broadcasts.
Well, just the one Coast to Coast was the one I heard, but he has a plethora of them on YouTube. I think everybody, a lot of people have interviewed him, and it's just a very compelling set of facts, or what the results. He has been researching about 16 hours a day for the last 7 or 8 years. And the resources he's using are ancient texts, and he's going back not only to the Greek text, but he's going to the Hebrew texts. He was able to measure. Jesus was 5'10" from the furlongs and the measurements that they use. It's pretty incredible. He measured out what the size of heaven, and that it's coming in, and it's a dome, and how the stones that they used are diamonds, because any kind of metal that the New Jerusalem would be would collapse in on itself as it was coming in. You got to see it. You got to see it.
Yeah, I would like to check. Definitely. And that you said that was when? When was that broadcast?
I think it was last night.
Okay.
So anyway, well, thank you so much, and I have sent contributions to you, and I will continue to do that, and I wish you well in your new studio, and hopefully Nibiru won't crush it on the 26th of March.
Well, thanks, and
thank you for the support and your listenership and your input tonight, and we will spend the weekend, at least part of the weekend, listening and seeing what we can find.
I'd love to hear your comments on it, and I will be praying along with you guys on Sunday, although I won't be there. But I'm just trusting that God will protect everyone there, and that'll be part of my prayer, is that there won't be any kind of a pushback for your,
I appreciate that.
God bless you, and thank you so much.
Okay, God bless.
Well, thanks. Have a good night.
We have time for one more call. Let's go to 336 next. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Well, hey there, Doug and Joe. How are y'all doing?
Good.
I just have one really quick question, since we're so close to the end of the show, and that is, could you talk a little about, or just kind of give a brief overview of Dr. John Coleman and his book, Conspirators' Hierarchy, Story of the Committee of 300.
Oh, yeah.
What I was always curious about was how he managed to come up with the list of 21 goals the committee has, because when you read those things, it's like very eerie about how all that stuff that we see going on in the news just tracks right along with all 21 of those goals.
Oh, yeah.
How close we are to finishing them up. And then just go into a little bit about the backstory of the Committee of 300, because I think our listeners, everybody that doesn't know about them, would be very curious to find out about that. And so then I'll just go ahead and hang up and listen to you on air.
Okay. Sounds great. Thanks for the call. Yeah.
Okay.
You make a you make
God
a
bless
lot.
you guys.
God bless you.
God bless you guys for your trip into Washington, D.C. You're going into the belly of the beast, I always say. So I'll be with you in spirit. I can't go myself.
Well, your prayers are welcome, and thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'll address this. In fact, I've got the book Committee of 300, the Conspirators' Hierarchy of the Committee of 300, right here, the revised and expanded 4th edition. Dr. John Coleman, folks. Dr. Coleman is perhaps the foremost expert on the Committee of 300, and he had he had written a book. In fact, the book I just referenced, 397 pages. And the background, I mean, who Dr. John Coleman is, he worked in British intelligence. He spent a lot of time, where do you start with a question like that? He spent a lot of time in intelligence work, in research in the UK, in British intelligence. He spent a lot of time developing contacts, but also a lot of time researching himself, the Committee of 300. And the results, the fruits of his research was the book, or is the book, referenced, again, the Committee of 300. We got about 60 seconds left of the program, so I'll just say this. I'll pick this up. If you just search, folks, if you search on the internet, the Committee of 300 and Dr. John Coleman, Coleman, you'll find parts of the book available. The goals of the Committee of 300, because it's a longer story than I can fit in 60 seconds that we've got here. But understand that this group has infiltrated every aspect of our society, and they are the unseen hand to which, or they are the people who are pulling the strings, the puppet strings. The Committee of 300, and there's an organizational chart in there, and I'm pretty sure you can find it online. But underneath the Committee of 300, you'll find the CFR, Trilateral Commission, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and on and on and on. And of course, there's a lot of subgroups: Stanford Research Institute, Institute for Policy Studies, and so forth, that you'll find as well connected to this, and even some membership lists. But having said that, folks, we're at the end of the program. Thank you, caller, for bringing out Dr. John Coleman. Again, very good source of information about the Committee of 300. Folks, until next week, God bless, and perhaps, if we get a chance, until next week. Stay safe. God bless.